Welcome to CTV. It's the month of the woman here in CTV, and like we promised you from the beginning of the month, we are here to bring you stories of people who are shaping our communities and helping to bridge the gender divide in celebration of International Women's Month. If you think the conversation should have ended with 8th March, that's exactly why we're having this conversation, because the issues that affect women and girls in our communities continue way after even International Women's Day has ended. Now, Uganda made a world record after locking learners out of school, that is for 83 weeks. And the 2-year closure was part of the government interventions to reduce the spread of COVID-19. The unintended consequence has been a lesson that keeping students in school is a contraceptive, to put it plainly. And it could be that the schools keep our young ones busy, or that guardians have relegated their duty to teachers and they no longer knew what to do once they were forced to stay with them for those 2 years. Now, out of the lockdown, we got alarming rates of teenage pregnancies, and an image of, a girl in school uniform might be what comes to your mind when we talk about teenage pregnancies. And we forget to speak about the men or the boys who are responsible or equally responsible for this. And now the burden to move on rests with our young girls. They're the ones who have to figure out how to move on. And some of them are as young as below the age of 10. Now with me, there's an ordinary woman who has decided to do something about that, because we'll always say, let the government do something about it. But here with us is someone who will show us that even you can do something about the problem of teenage pregnancies. But before we go any further, let's meet her through this story.
Several reports published during lockdown highlighted scores of teenage pregnancies. Busoga region was among the flagship areas. The Ministry of Gender recorded 8,000 cases since 2020. Mebren Mutekanga, a resident of Udondo sub-county, set up Good Hope School to accommodate young mothers exposed to the effects.
I really looked at these young girls, especially the victims of teenage pregnancy, and in a way I thought of giving back to my community, and that is why I began the school. The school covers all kinds of learners, the boys, the girls, but that is a part, that is a project of giving back to the community. In a way, we want to have these girls empowered at the basic level so that they can have the basic certificates, the basic knowledge, that is finish their O-level, go to A-level, and then we're also looking at having them equipped in other skills, tailoring, hairdressing, modern agriculture, such that they can be able to take care of their children.
Young mothers in the area welcome the return to school.
School fees.
She says, however, stigma and discrimination from the community still prevalent.
They lack enough guidance, especially during the holidays. The talking is minimal, and so you find that they are listening from various people that are demoralizing them, people that think they are wasting time going back to school and so could be doing other things, people that think they are a waste already and so cannot achieve anything. That's a basic challenge.
The progress is, however, hampered by thin resource basket.
Financing or managing them at school is quite hard, because most of the parents, as these girls make such a mistake, they leave them to man themselves. They assume these people are now adults and so can buy themselves clothes, can buy their children clothes, and that becomes very hard and challenging. So that's a very big challenge. Independence at such a minor or a tender age becomes very, very difficult. Another challenge, of course, I talked about the community, mocking them, laughing at them, looking at it as a waste of time. But as we speak to them, yes, they can achieve what they intend to.
She says government intervention will liberate the initiative.
Government and NGOs and individuals need to come in, of course, and help these girls in various ways. One, the financial part of it. We are looking at having these girls equipped, so we still need the sewing machines, we need the items to use for training in hairdressing, we need knowledge, people that can come in and guide them in modern agriculture. We need counselors. A lot of guidance and counseling is needed to keep them focused and keep them, of course, have the morale, the zeal of becoming better people.
Non-government organizations have reacted. ESLA Uganda is advancing vocational.
We set up this project, the New Hope Secondary School, to give these girls another chance at life. We rehabilitate them back to school and we equip them with vocational skills like tailoring, hairdressing, and we want to introduce other skills like baking, so that these girls can be able to afford a living. And then I want them to stay in school, not to go back to the marriages because of the hardships they are finding.
There you have it. And with me here in studio is Mebron Mutekanga, a remarkable change maker who has traveled all the way from Njeru in eastern Uganda to be with us here on Month of the Woman. Welcome to the show, Mebron.
Thank you so much.
Well, as is the tradition here on Month of the Woman, we always want to know our guests in person. And the question we always ask is, everyone is passionate about issues to do with the more vulnerable in community. What is it that made you to take a step, not just to look at the issues, see them, but to take a step to do something about it?
Thank you so much. I am excited. My name is Mebron Mutekanga. I am the director of New Hope Secondary School. The school is in Jinja, Dondo, Jinja North Division. The question is a big one. What made me take a step? Of course, the reasons are very many. Looking at the community, looking at the people out there, seeing young girls go through difficulties, that is one reason enough to prompt somebody take a step. And that was actually the core reason that forced me. Teenage pregnancy is a contemporary problem, a very big one indeed, that draws almost everyone's attention. Though, of course, it is kind of something that people have just looked on and left at that. But anyone that has a heart for the country, a heart for the community, can really take the initiative to start on something and perhaps do something to help the teenage mothers out there.
Right. Well, you say anyone, but we know surely it's not everyone that does something.
Yes.
You are into education. Yes. You have a background in education. Is that something that you had always wanted to do when you were growing up?
Yeah, as a young girl, I grew up in a male-dominated kind of family.
Yeah.
5 brothers and just 1 sister. So I grew up with a lot of mockery and bullying and teasing.
From your own family?
From my own family. You know how boys are, rough, rude. So my dad helped me so much to learn to stand on my own and defend myself. So seeing girls vulnerable, seeing girls suffer, go through difficulties, triggers me to actually tell them you can.
Because you can relate to them?
Exactly. It really triggers me to tell them, please start on something. You're a girl, but you can do something despite the gender.
Right.
And so that drives me so much.
Right. And I know that the community that you come from, Njeru, is also unique in its own way. You've said teenage pregnancies, it's a contemporary issue.
Exactly.
For many of the people right now, we relate teenage pregnancies to the lockdown, but it's an issue that had been there even way before the lockdown.
Yes.
If you can take us to your community and paint for us a picture, how big is the issue there?
Now, talking of my community, I look at Busoga as a region.
Yeah.
And if I compare Busoga to other regions, the issue of teenage pregnancy is at a peak. You cannot move 2 households and fail to find a teenage mother. It is something wild. It is something that people have taken to look at as something normal, yet very abnormal. Yeah. And so we need to come up, we need to do something everyone out there ought to take a step, because it is something very bad, it is something very ugly, something that nobody would love to see happening.
And just to ask, when you say it's at the peak, almost every household, from your own observation,
Yes.
why do you think that's the case?
Of course, the reasons are so very many. One, poverty. If I try to compare Usoga to other regions, the rates of poverty are very high that side.
Yeah.
And that, of course, comes with the parents are not doing enough to make resources and provide for these children. And so they are tempted by the men and the other gender, of course, into doing something in a way of buying food, clothes, a simple pair of shoes. These girls are tempted
Yeah.
to get into affairs which are in the end causing teenage
Pregnancy.
pregnancies.
And I understand that sometimes even the parents do encourage the children to get married because they will get money from the other
Exactly.
family.
There are so many parents out there that are pushing the young girls to go and get married simply
Yeah.
because they are expecting something. And the dramatic part of it is there is nothing that these parents are actually getting apart from a few kilograms of sugar in a green Kavera, and then you're left wondering, but yes, that is going on.
I understand that, okay, from going back to your own story,
Yes.
for you, it seems obvious that everyone has to do something, but we're telling you, well, not everyone is doing something. I mean, moving ahead to start, say, a school to take in the teenage mothers. When did you start New Hope Secondary School?
Well, New Hope began as a vision.
Yeah,
Like I told you, or like you said, I have a background in education.
yeah,
One of the core reasons that drove me into doing that course, despite the challenges, despite the negativities about education and teachers, personally, I really love to do education, become a teacher and mentor someone. I was so much helped by teachers. I can take you back to my O-level school as a young girl, as a teenager, very stubborn and crazy. Raised disturbing teachers. Everyone gave up on me, including my own mother. Time reached and she felt I was a waste. I wasn't immoral, but I was stubborn, like abnormally stubborn.
you wouldn't concentrate in class and all?
Exactly.
Yeah?
So I would take poor grades. I would be on suspensions every now and then. So people
Gave up on you. Interesting.
There was this teacher, Madame Susan. She's still a teacher now. The Dorsey at Rehoboth High School in Injelu. She picked on me, mothered me, and mentored me. She so much believed that I could become someone. And in so doing, I really appreciated the work that she played in my life.
Right.
Slowly by slowly, I changed upon listening to her counsel, upon listening to very many other people. But of course, she was so influential.
What is it that that teacher said to a stubborn child such as yourself that made you calm down?
Oh yes, she believed in me. Of course, I was a bright girl.
Yeah.
Academically, I was capable. And so she saw that in me and kept telling me that I could actually live the other stubborn way of life and become someone responsible.
Yeah.
And so I tried to do what she was telling me. She went an extra mile. She was a teacher of CRE,
Yeah.
that is arts, but the lady could help me with math, geography, physics, and all these other areas.
Yeah.
And so she played a key role in my life, and that drew me to aspiring to become a teacher and perhaps help someone out there.
Right.
Someone messing up their life, someone becoming a nuisance. And that was the core reason that drew me to doing education.
Yeah, so from there, then it drove you to thinking of a school. I mean, you could have just thought, okay, let me go and teach, but not a school.
Oh yes, I taught everyone from everyone at the campus, at the university. I think so. Teaching, of course, that's the course.
Yeah.
So after my campus, I was at Makerere University. I graduated. I began school. But of course, as I was engaging, I also had this in mind that perhaps one day I'll do a school.
Yeah.
And being a secondary teacher, of course, the first thing that came to my mind was a secondary school. But of course, the resources are always a limitation. So it took me something like 3 years after campus, thinking about that. I had the name of the school in my mind, I had the vision written down. I had lots of plans about it, and my family members knew about it.
Yeah.
My dad is very supportive, so I kept telling him about my intentions, my dream of making a school. Specifically, I wanted to make a school in my community, in my area of Bath,
Yeah.
in a way of giving back to the
Community, yeah.
Of course, looking at the poor levels of education, looking at the way schools around were handling education. So I really wanted to take a step and give back to the community.
Yeah.
And that drove me.
Yeah. Right. And then, you know, from that vision
Yes.
to wanting to do something about it, how did you eventually get the resources to start the school?
Well, that's another long story. I had a vision.
Yeah.
I had the ideas. I shared with a few of my friends,
Yeah.
and everyone was wondering, how could that
Be-
be? How could I even think of something?
Because the vision was too big?
The vision was too big for me to hold and to handle. However, upon sharing with my dad, I have a big brother, Brian, so I shared with everyone in the family, and everyone was like, yes, you can do something, you can start. The starting point was hard. I didn't have money, but I was brave enough to start the initiative. And so I spoke to a neighbor. There was some free land next to our home.
Yeah.
I spoke to the man, the owner. We negotiated, and he asked for about 4M
Yeah.
for rent. That was to take a grace period of about 2 years. I was like, yes, I'll get the 4M. Of course, from my family.
Yeah.
They were willing to support. Everyone was like, I'll do something, I'll do something.
That's quite good of them. I should say.
In December, I think that was around 2018,
Yeah.
having concluded with this guy, negotiated everything, the guy came home. December, we had already,
Started putting up structures?
yes, no structures, but we had drawn the vision, you know, we had told
okay.
people there was going to be a school
Yeah.
starting in that particular place. So this guy came up with another story. And then he was like, you know, a school wastes land. Kids destroy
The
almost
property,
everything.
Yeah.
So I am doubling the money. Other than 4M, I want 8.
So the land that they had given you, did it have structures already?
Nothing
the
at
building, or you
all.
had to build?
There was nothing.
Okay.
And so I was supposed to put temporary structures for the start.
Yeah.
So upon him coming, I was so disturbed. In fact, I looked at him and I was like, God, is this the devil coming from hell to really make this fail to be in existence?
Yeah.
I was so frustrated. I just told him, you know what? Take your land and keep it. So at that point of giving up, I was thinking of postponing, pushing it to some other time, perhaps to start. That was when my mom and dad sat somewhere and discussed, and then called me home. So I went home, sat with them, and then my dad was telling me, how about if we use the resources that we have at home? Because we have land as a family.
Yeah.
We had structures around. Of course, not very good, but it was worth starting from. So I looked at it, something being very difficult, operating from home,
Yeah.
a school. But my parents were very positive, and for them it was very fine with it. I was looking at the noise, the disturbance from students in a home setting.
How many students were you envisioning at that time? What population did you
I was
want to
looking
start
at
with?
100 students for the start.
Yeah.
And so I was really disturbed. But to my surprise, everyone at home, my family, my brothers, I have more brothers.
Yeah.
So I always forget that I have a sister. She's young. So all these guys were supporting. I was like, okay. And now that they were positive about it, it was worth starting.
And those are the structures that we saw
Exactly.
earlier? Okay.
So we took a step, left the guy at his place, and decided to operate from home. And that is exactly where we are.
And then fast forward, COVID-19 starts when you have just opened the school. Did it open in
Exactly.
2019?
Yes.
And then you had just studied 1 year?
Not even a year.
Yeah.
of course, we began the school. Upon just sharing the vision, teachers began calling.
Yeah.
Someone in the names of Ogaram Moses was very noble. He called and was like, I've seen this and I would love to be part of it.
Yeah.
He came with a colleague, we met, talked. I was like, yes, you want to work in a place that has not registered even a student? And yes, they were positive. I was like, okay, I need a team.
Yeah.
So we went to the community, began visiting churches, mosques, different gatherings, burial ceremonies, and telling people about a school that was yet to
Start in Njero.
start.
Yeah.
And so we did. My dear, on our first day, we registered one student. And that student was in senior 4, amazingly.
Did you feel discouraged at that time?
Yes, we were. We got so discouraged. I felt like running away. Just know you've taken a full month or plus informing people about something. And then on day 1, we had one.
And what did you do with that one student?
Moses was very positive. He taught. He taught him from morning up to break, rang the bell. There was no canteen, nothing. So the boy moved around. He sat with the teachers who were 3 on ground.
Yeah.
Took tea together as if he was part of the staff.
Yeah.
Until he went back to class. I couldn't go to class. I was so worried, I was so fearful, but these guys were committed. They taught him after break and went back after lunch until the boy was sent home at 4:40,
Right.
normally. And then day 2, he came with a colleague. I think he managed to convince someone to join him.
Yeah.
So he had to, we taught them. The 3rd day, that is when the numbers really increased.
Now we'll hold it right there and we'll go for a very short break. We are hearing the remarkable story of Mebron Mutekanga, an individual who has decided to do something in her community and is right now sheltering a lot of girls who have fallen pregnant, especially during the 2-year period when the COVID-19 hit and people were forced into lockdown. We're going for a very short break, and when we return, we'll hear more on how she's doing exactly that. Don't blink.
We entertain you. Ngawe tukuwata. Amanya Shami Manja, omobwatu President Birabiri Mukaga, akabonero court. Nanga wento naliya nafuka ikankomya aliya one but tikutema olwaleero.
Ani tubasuubiza ntugenda kubanga tuli mu bitundu ebyenjawulo.
Ani yayambadde obulungi. Kakoye kyakaze ku mulembe. Ne gown ya black erina tiara ya black.
Tiara.
English of my kind. Tiara.
I feel the beat.
You feel the beat?
Yeah.
Olokwa kuteekigero oba feeling the beat. Show bagiyita situations ko ground. This is a buffet kyagala ky'olyako.
Beerako ku CTV totemya.
Don't blink.
Now showing on CTV. Don't blink. The big debate is back. Bigger, bolder, reloaded. Whether it is securing your future, holding fast to the people power, or the promise of a one Uganda, one thing is certain: the big debate is on.
So why don't you respect the memories of voters for this?
We have already addressed the issue of increment.
How many people have ever been convicted?
Okay.
The way the politics plays in cabinet.
So now why are they asking for the statement?
Follow mainstream conversations on current affairs and leading policy debates in Uganda.
It is in our interest to handle arrested people very nicely.
Right here on The Big Debate.
Let me finalize this. I was quiet. I was quiet.
It's a hard-hitting talk show on development issues in the political and social-economic arena. Discussions that inform policy and trigger high-level dialogue. Now showing on CTV. don't blink.
Welcome back and thank you for keeping it CTV. You're watching Month of the Woman, which is special programming that we are bringing to you this month of March 2022 in celebration of International Women's Month. And we are bringing people and individuals who are doing the most in their communities to help especially the women and the girls in their communities. We are learning from them how they are doing it, and we hope that you can also emulate their example in bridging the gender gap. Now, before we went for a short break, here we have Mebron Mutekanga, a formerly stubborn student, in her own words, who was cancelled by a teacher and transformed. And because of the words they told her, she was inspired to become a teacher and to start a school. That school has now become a haven for a number of teenage mothers in her community. And that school is called New Hope in Njeru Jinja. Before we went for the break, you were telling us about how you started out with a vision to have 100 students.
Yes.
On opening day, you had only one. But right now, the population has since grown, especially, and you're always receiving phone calls that you don't know what to do anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers keep increasing. Of course, in the start, like I told, we anticipated at least to begin with 100 students. So on the third day, we received about 10 more. By the end of the week, we had registered 38 students, both boys and girls, different classes. Basically, I was looking at giving back to the community, like I said in the first place. So I made sure that the fees were very, very low to have everyone get back to school.
By very low, what fee was that?
They were paying 140. That was inclusive of a uniform and inclusive of the meals.
Right.
So the money was very friendly to a common parent, especially in a rural kind of setting. Yes, by the end of the second week, we had, by that time we were registering senior 2, 3, and 4, and we had left out Form 1 because their time for enrolling back to school had not come. So by the end of the third week, we had shot to about 60. And then as Form 1s came in, the numbers increased to 130. And we're very excited.
And what's the population that you have right now?
Right now, given the effects of COVID, of course, we lost so many. The number has deteriorated. We have close to 90. We're just clocking 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But I understand that of those, you have made it very clear that you want to take in, especially the teenage mothers, especially those who've been chased away from their homes. If you can tell us about that.
Exactly. The big thing that we are doing that makes us a little bit very different from other schools is the aspect of the teenage mothers. With them, I've given them an opportunity to come and enroll to school at a free cost, in a way of giving hope to them. Yeah. Of course, many of these girls, upon becoming victims of teenage pregnancy, it's common and it's natural. The men take off because these girls are minor. So they take off in fear of criminal cases against them. So you find that these girls are vulnerable. What the community does, most of the parents negotiate with the boy's family and so tell them to take care of
the child.
Of the child and the,
force them to get married.
They force them to get married. Yeah. And at the end of the day, these girls are left on their own and they cannot survive. So we are trying to sensitize the community that these girls can actually get back to school and do learning. We are looking at having them have the basic education, that is, study the physics, the biology, the math, and at least finish senior 4. But of course, as they study, we are also looking at having them skilled, because upon becoming a teenage mother, they have a minor. They have someone to take care of. Yeah. So we are looking at having them skilled. They learn the sewing, they learn the weaving, they learn the tailoring.
That's what you're doing as part of co-curricular activities?
Exactly.
Is it for all the students that you have, or you're looking at that specifically
that is for the teenage mothers. Yeah. That is basically for the teenage mothers. Yeah. And as they get back to school, we encourage them to balance. They are doing this concurrently.
Yeah.
As they study the biology, they're also studying the tailoring. Because you're looking at immediately after you're done with, say, senior 4. If at all there are no resources to push you to senior 5 or do a course, what can you do? And that is why we are looking at having them get skilled. In future, of course, the resources are always a limit. But we are looking at establishing workshops whereby these girls can sit, have a team of about 20 that are tailoring, provide them with the materials, have them showcase what they have learned, and sell to the community and different people out there.
In Njeru, is it that the other schools are not welcoming the teenage mothers? Is that what pushed you the most to welcome them into New
Not
Hope?
necessarily that, but of course, not just in Njeru, but Jinja, Budondo, as a community, teenage mothers are already stigmatized. Everyone looks at you as a fallen angel, a waste, someone immoral. But I'm trying to paint a different picture. And that is my biggest desire, painting a different picture, that we can put an end to teenage pregnancy through creating awareness, but also through telling the parents that we are not meant to just do the judging. We can actually help them get back on their feet and become responsible or even better people in communities.
Where do you get the most phone calls from right now? Is it the teenage mothers themselves or their families?
The families in the first place. Of course, upon sharing with different parents,
They
share with others that are experiencing or that have victims of teenage pregnancy.
Right.
And I receive different calls from parents, basically the parents. Someone will call you, I have a child, I have a girl, she's home. Can you please come in? Can you help her? Can you do this?
And when you receive the girls, what's the first thing that you do with them?
First thing that we do is counseling. I take a lot of time with the teenage mothers because until their mind is transformed, that they can become a better person, you are doing nothing. But upon speaking with them, upon counseling them, upon guiding them, that actually this is not the end of the world, then it's very easy to deal with someone whose attitude is positive towards something. So the first step is doing the counseling. I take time with my team to ask this kind of girl if they're still interested in learning, because that's the first thing. It is not a question of pushing them to class and telling them, no, study biology, study English. No. So we take time, do the counseling, tell them they can become someone better. And upon realizing, they start sharing. They open up. Someone tells you, my intention was to become a doctor. My intention was this. My intention was this. And then you come in and tell them it's still possible. You can become the doctor you so wanted to.
So if I'm understanding, when the person comes in and before they are in the positive frame of mind, you first leave them, you don't, for days maybe, until they voluntarily come back to class.
Exactly. Of course, the first step is meeting with this parent. A parent calls. So I don't ask the parent to come alone. I ask them to tag around with their child and also the baby. Because it is very important. We look at the baby. That is another core step that we take. We look at how old the child is. Yes, we want you back in school, but at what expense are you living this this young kid that you brought to life? So you find that sometimes the parent wants the girl back in school, but the baby is 3 months. The baby is 4 months.
And what do you do in that case?
Exactly, we do a lot of talking. One, we look at the person that is going to take care of the baby. If the baby is below 6 months, we tell the mother to continue taking care of the baby, do the breastfeeding, do the nurturing until the baby makes 6 months. Of course, believing that at 6, the baby can start feeding on soft food. And so we can have this one occupied knowing the baby is safe back in the hands of the parent or anyone willing.
Yeah, and then when they're done with that, that's when they go back. And then you talked about the other activities that you're doing, like tailoring and weaving. How are you getting the resources and the trainers to do that? Are they amongst the teachers?
No. Thank you so much. Upon sharing this vision with different people, at the beginning, my sole aim was taking these girls back to school. Then, of course, as I am sharing with you, exactly that's how I share with people. Yeah. And different people bring in various ideas. I was joined by a team, ESLA, Uganda. Yeah. ESLA is Economic and Social Empowerment for Local Communities. Yeah. They looked at the story, they looked at the vision, and joined with the team. And so we are partnering, we are working with ESLA. And ESLA basically looks at the empowerment skill, the empowerment part of it. And so they brought in the idea. Initially, I was looking at having these girls equipped and taken back to school. ESLA came in and was like, this is not enough. There is much more that we can do to help this girl develop fully or come out of school wholesome. Yeah. So ESLA is of course welcoming different partners, different people that can come in to support. So basically, they're doing the skilling part of it. Yeah. So ESLA, as an NGO, invites different people. They take a step to bring in trainers to do the training, to teach the girls. At one time, they were teaching them how to make paper bags. And they made it so easy for them. They trained them and also buy from them.
Markets are very important.
Very important. Yeah. So they train them how to do paper bags. You will see them doing it and buy from them and give them the money. And that is basically what they need because they have the young ones that they have to take care of.
Right.
Yes.
And the sensitization that you're doing, are you also being intentional to find out the boy child as well? Because I believe that even pregnancies happen because of a lack of information at some point. So when the integration happens, because your school is mixed?
Yes, it is.
Right. Yeah. So how are you helping even the boys to understand and have compassion for these girls?
We do a lot of counseling. I actually believe in this kind of era post-COVID, everyone needs counseling, ranging from the teachers to the support staff. So accommodating the teenage mothers, accommodating the girl child, accommodating everyone starts with counseling. So our counseling sessions are not only for the teenage mothers or the girls, but for all. We come up with different ideas. At one time, I have a friend, Frank, was telling me, we need the boys brigade. We need to have the boys nurtured into being real men. So I find different ideas popping up to see that all gender is catered for.
Yeah.
Of course, when someone looks at you taking the side of the girl, I was like, yes.
How about
the boy?
Yes.
And that is exactly what we are doing. We are trying in schools, like what ESLA does. ESLA has different clubs in various schools. So while there, they take a step and do the talking to the boys. And on many occasions, I am actually invited to do the talking.
Right.
So we talk to the boys, we talk to the girls, but of course the girl child is most vulnerable.
Well, and that's why we're having this conversation, and you keep reminding our viewers that it's not that we are forgetting about the boy child, but the injustices that happen in our communities affect the girls the most.
Exactly.
I think pregnancies are the biggest example where there are two parties involved, but it's only one who bears the brunt, the burden. Have you had any cases of boys owning up to these pregnancies and maybe wanting to take responsibility?
It is on rare occasions that you're going to find a boy coming up and saying, I am here. Actually, in most cases, these girls are pregnant, not with fellow students or age mates, but with big people out there, big men, fathers. They're the ones responsible. And of course, knowing that it's criminal, they take off.
Right.
They run away and leave these girls struggle on their own.
And I think that's why the message has to be shared the most, and maybe why it's important that you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Because when we stigmatize the girls and we think they're being immoral, then we're not looking at all the other nuances involved, because that would be rape, in some cases defilement actually, which is not being talked about. And on the issues of, you mentioned in the clip that we played earlier that you face, or the girls face, a lot of stigma. How are you helping these girls to come back? Because even when you counsel them and they are shielded within the school, what happens when they leave the school premises and they have to go back to the communities and their parents' homes?
Now, as we do this sort of counseling, there is what we call esteem, self-esteem.
Right.
These girls are taught to accept the reality. And in accepting the reality, it gives you the urge to be brave, to hold on. Because if you call me a teenage mother and I have accepted it, then it becomes very easy for me to move on. So basically we help them realize, actually live it, because there is evidence already that you are. You find, even in school, the stigma cannot be phased away in just an overnight.
Right.
So you find someone calling a fellow student, big mama, you a mama, you are big enough to be my mother, simply because they have a toddler.
That's quite harsh.
Indeed, it is. But we keep the talking and tell them it is true. My father told me that if someone calls you any sort of name, someone abuses you. I told you I came from a bullying family with boys. Yeah. So they tell you you're big, you're ugly, you're this. Tell them, I know. It is no news. If you think so, it is well. And actually, as I became, I think, a teenager, there is no abuse that would make me cry. Because I had had lots of them at home. You could not tell me you're this. I said, yes, I know. So that sort of esteem is very important.
Right.
These girls are taught to live what they are. You cannot run away from it. It is like living with HIV. The moment you accept it, you live knowing it happened. So you just accept the reality.
Yeah.
So the stigma won't stop at them. It will keep there. We have seen a racial sort of discrimination in different areas. The moment you cry over it, it haunts you. It affects you. But the moment you say, hey, I am black, I am beautiful, I am wonderfully made, regardless of it all.
And so your strategy is taking the sting out of the weapon of the person who is coming after you.
Yes.
Yeah, so you tell them to accept who they are, and then going back to communities and the parents or the communities they're coming from. Or maybe something that you can also help us to clarify on. So as you're taking in the teenage parents, are you providing a boarding section or shelter, or are they commuting from school every day?
Now, most of the teenage mothers are commuting from home.
Yeah.
And this is because they are from within the community. And they also have the young ones. Now, it's one difficult thing to separate a mother and a child, especially a minor, a kid that is vulnerable, one that cannot even speak. So in most cases, I do encourage the mothers, the grandparents of the young ones, to take very keen attention. Actually, in our counseling sessions, before we take a lot of our time with the teenage mother. We take time with both the parents of this teenage mother, the now grandparents. So we keep telling them that the kind of environment that you give the young one is what is going to push the teenage mother into concentrating, into focusing.
Right.
Because the moment she comes back from school and the baby is in dirt, the baby has not been attended to, the following day she will not go back to school.
Yeah.
She'll look for other options of how to survive.
And are you receiving positive response?
Exactly, because we take time, we follow up. Actually, the big vision is in future when we get the resources, we are looking at having the toddlers accommodated at school.
All right, so you're doing a generational change, not just helping the mothers, but
Yes.
helping their parents who are now grandparents.
Exactly.
And also helping the young ones
The young
who are now
ones.
grandchildren.
Exactly.
What a remarkable story that you are doing indeed. There's someone who mentioned challenges of school fees.
Yes.
And also you as a school, of course, you need resources, like you
Exactly.
mentioned, to run the school. How are you managing to do what you're doing right now? When you subsidize or take away school fees for the teenage parents, how are you able to compensate to keep the school running?
No, of course that is the most challenging part of it.
Yeah.
The numbers are overwhelming. They are bringing them for you, but then you have to look at the financial implication.
When you say they're overwhelming, how many are they right now?
The ones that are in school are about 40 and 2.
Yeah.
But the ones that are calling and need help are still so many. Even this morning I was speaking to a mother from Buyende. She was telling me, I have a girl here. Actually, most of them, the distant ones, some parents look at it as a punishment. They separate the girl from the child, push them in school and dump them there. I call it dumping.
Yeah.
So we take time to tell the parent it is not right at all. She needs to know how the baby is doing. She needs to know that the baby is safe. I am a mother.
Yeah.
I know what it means to be
separated.
separated. Yeah. So, of course, we look at the little money coming in from the parents of the ones that are paying. But also, we look at doing different things. I plant food. So I am not buying food at school. I take advantage of the home resources, so there is land. I only invest in the digging, in the planting, but at least some money is saved.
Yeah.
The money that would be buying food is saved. So we have food in the stores. We are not buying food. The only things that I'm looking at school is funding the teachers.
Yeah.
And paying a few bills, that is water and electricity.
But that's very entrepreneurial of you to even start up a school garden so that you save food. I've
Yes.
had stories from head teachers, for example, who, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, lost a lot of money because they had bought sacks and sacks of food that went bad because there was no attention, or there was no clear date on when reopening would happen, and the suppliers could not take back that. But you also have things like books, other supplies. Do the students buy for themselves, especially the teenage mothers, or do you subsidize that for them?
Books for their own use? Or
Yes,
text?
books, yes.
Oh,
and
yes.
textbooks as well.
Now, the two parties sit. We sit with our parents.
The grandparents.
The
now?
grandparents.
Yeah.
Our major aim of bringing the teenage mothers is not just beneficial to us,
Yeah.
but to the community.
Right.
I keep telling these parents that if you empower your child, this child will be able to take care of their own. If you fail to support a teenage mother, you're nurturing or you're raising another burden.
For the community.
Not just for the community, but for yourself
Yeah.
as a family. Because if your daughter cannot take care of her daughter or son, then it comes back to you. She will run away. She'll go abroad. You know, that's now the trend.
Yeah.
She'll run abroad to make money in Saudi Arabia. Some run away and leave these kids with them. So this is like an eye-opener. We tell them, struggle to take care of this one, such that in the near future, she can take care of her own.
Right.
So we sit together with these parents and look at what they can afford. So in many cases, we are telling them, we expect you to buy the books, we expect you to buy the uniform, and we expect you to take care of the young one as we take care of the mother. Yes,
yeah.
the mother. So very many of them are positive, very positive. So upon realizing school fees is there, I can buy the books, just 12 books, getting a 30,000 and buying a uniform.
Yeah.
So they are supportive.
Right.
Because we take time to guide them.
And support from the local leaders, how receptive have they been to your efforts?
The local leaders are trying, of course, upon sharing with them. Basically, they are helping in the sensitization. Because we take time and sit with them and tell them how important that is. My dad happens to be the chairperson of the parish. So he is in charge of 10 villages. He has 10 LC1s under him.
Yeah.
So he's like their boss.
Right.
And oftentimes they sit home for their meetings. That's where the offices are. So as they come in, we take time and share with them. We take time, personally, I take time and tell them if there are teenage mothers out there in your community, in your localities, bring them on board. We are taking them on. We are helping them. And so they help in the mobilization and in the sensitization. They are.
Do you think that it would maybe lessen the burden on your school if you rallied other school owners or other directors of schools to do the same that you're doing?
That is not something easy. Of course, people will always look at the monetary part of it, the financial implication. Not everyone is willing to accommodate students who are not paying. It would be a good move if my other colleagues out there could embrace this. Because like I said in the beginning, this is a contemporary problem. If we don't address it, it is going to affect us. Because if there are teenage mothers in every household, that
you
means...
mentioned 1 in every 2 households?
Yes.
Yeah.
That means at the end of the day, the community will lag behind. And teenage pregnancy, teenage issues are not just in Busoga, but they're everywhere. And I strongly believe if everyone came up, if everyone did or took a step, then we can curb this. We can reduce it. I am very positive.
Right.
Imagine everyone speaking against it. Everyone encouraging the girls to stay in school. Everyone laying a platform for girls to get back in school. Then that can be news.
Indeed, and that's why we're having this conversation, because we believe that someone out there will listen and say, if Mtekanga can do this, then surely I also can do it. You've had a call to action for more funding and for government to come in and help with the work that you're doing. If you can tell us more about that. If you had, what's your dream resource to start with? If you had all the money you could, how much money would you need to continue running this facility?
Now, that's a very technical question. But if I needed money, I think I would need all the money in the world. But of course, that is just hyperbolic. But every money counts. Yeah. Sometimes I speak to friends. I have a friend, Milka. I was sharing with her. And then she was like, Mebron, I can do something. She provided a dryer for saloon. Yeah. Just one. And you can't imagine how excited I was that a friend can buy an idea and do
is that
something.
For training? The
Skills
training?
Yes, for the skills training. Yeah. Then my brother bought a sewing machine, just one, to support the vision. Then Esla comes in and is trying to get these other things that we need. So there is no big money and there is no small money, but everything that comes in can do something. Sometimes I see friends coming in upon sharing with them, and someone says, I have clothes for babies. And so they bring a sack. And as you're giving out to the teenage mothers to take something home, you see how happy they are. And that is transforming enough.
In the society, right. And we'll hear more on how, especially the bigger communities or the authorities can help Mtekanga and many like her who are doing the most in their communities to transform. Like she has already explained, it's not just about the teenage mothers, but it affects families and the community at the end of the day. CTV Month of the Woman takes a very short break. We'll be right back.
CTV is now on StarTimes. You can now catch all your favorite programs, our daily comprehensive news bulletins, and so much more on StarTimes channel number 248. Stay tuned for a world of endless possibilities. CTV. Don't blink. The big debate is back. Bigger, bolder, reloaded. Whether it is securing your future, holding fast to the people power, or the promise of a one Uganda, one thing is certain: the big debate is on.
So why don't you respect the memories of Dr. Kondesi?
We have already addressed the issue of increment.
How many people have ever been convicted?
Okay.
The way the politics plays in cabinet.
So now why are they asking for the statement?
Follow mainstream conversations on current affairs and leading policy debates in Uganda.
It is in our interest to handle arrested people very nicely.
Right here on The Big Debate.
Let me finalize this. I was quiet. I was quiet.
It's a hard-hitting talk show on development issues in the political and social-economic arena. Discussions that inform policy and trigger high-level dialogue. Now showing on CTV. Don't blink.
Thank you for staying with us here on CTV. It's the month of the woman, special programming that we are bringing to you to celebrate International Women's Day. And we are keeping to the promise that we made to you since the beginning. That is bringing people, specialists and experts who are doing the most in their communities, and they're sharing their stories with us on how they're helping to bridge the gender gap and how they're empowering young women and girls in our communities. Today we have the remarkable Mebron Mutekanga, and I say remarkable because of what she's doing in her community. I think almost half of the population that you have in your school are teenage mothers, which is quite remarkable. If you had what's the vision for the school right now? You're working with the little resources that you have. Started out with a vision of 100, but now you're about 90, and it's about 90 because the COVID pandemic forced a number of students to drop out. Yes. But if you could, given now the situation and how circumstances have changed, how would you wish the school to evolve right now?
Well, it has been challenging, but you're not going to lament over that forever.
Yeah.
The school looks forward to having land, because like I told you, we are operating from home.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to rub shoulders with my brothers, with my family, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that can come up, but you never know. We are human and anything can happen. And that is not my land. That is family land.
Right.
So I'm looking at buying land in future. Every little resources that I get directed towards achieving that. Having a fully established institution with structures, a very big accommodative space.
When you say very big, how big would that be?
Yes, I'm looking at being in position to accommodate at least a minimum of 200 teenage mothers, leaving aside the rest of the school. But I'm looking at least being in position to accommodate over 200 teenage mothers. I think that can be very big, that can be very resourceful, that can be of much help. Because right now we are limited. We would love to have everyone on board, but then there are resources. So of course, it's a call. I call upon everyone that can come up to support this vision. Together we can change the world.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should clarify that you're not encouraging other teenagers to go out there and get pregnant.
No. In our talk, like I said, we do a lot of talking. We do a lot of counseling.
Yeah.
Many people are actually tempted to think, if you look at it in the other way, it is like telling them it's okay as long as you can come back. But definitely that is not even closer to what we are doing.
Right.
We are doing the sensitizing, we are doing the talking to curb teenage pregnancy. pregnancy. But my question is, we are not going to let the victims stay victims forever. We are looking at having them back. At one time, I was touched by a lady's story. It was a symposium that we had, I think, in 2018, of a lady that conceived in Senior 2. And her story was an amazing one. And I'm writing a book just from her story.
Right, okay.
Yeah. She conceived in Senior 2, cast away from her family, taken care of by some ladies in the Catholic Society, nuns. They helped her give birth. The baby did not have a name, because upon conceiving, that is when she realized that she did not even know the name of the husband, of the father. High school things.
Right.
So she named the baby Sanyu. And to cut the whole story short, the time she was testifying, she was a surgeon. And her Sanyu was enrolling at the university. Now I'm looking at having so many Sanyus. I'm looking at having so many people getting back on feet and becoming better people.
Right, that's quite remarkable, and I hope you bring Mama Sanyu to New Hope to speak to some of your students so that they can see that they still have a future to hold. You talked about, earlier on, you had mentioned something about helping the mothers, especially those who've already given birth, to stay with their young ones. Do they sometimes come to school with them? Do you have an accommodation for that?
No, like I said in the first place, I am operating from home.
Yeah.
I find this sometimes funny, but as a mother, I know what it means to have your baby. So once in a while, especially in situations of the young one being sick, if at all we are doing exams or there is some sort of seriousness at school, I do encourage the teenage mothers to tag around with their babies. And I've always tasked my mom to take care of the baby. And I've seen her carry the babies. I've seen her take care of the babies while the mothers are writing an exam or while the mothers are doing something. And during break time, lunchtime, or even during classes, they can check on the baby. And actually, I am really looking at that in the near future. We are looking at having a nursery, not to teach them, but just to have someone take care of the young ones.
And so a daycare of
like
sorts.
A daycare, whereby this mother is in class, but is sure the baby is safe. I know that can bring them closer to building a very positive attitude.
And what would it take for you to have that daycare? When you look at the vision of that, what resources would you need?
It takes a lot, but like I say, there is nothing too much or too small. It takes resources, it takes money. We are looking, that takes putting in place a structure, temporary or permanent, depending on what you have.
Yeah.
And then that also calls for hiring someone skilled enough that can take care of the young ones. Of course, you're not going to hire people and tell them, since this is voluntary, just come and work, blah, 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 we shall eat food, and then you go home.
Yeah.
It comes with resources. So that is what we are looking at.
If policies would change to support your cause, what sort of change would you want to see?
In the first place, I would love a very strict policy on the parenting. If parents can be pushed towards knowing that teenage pregnancy is not the end of life, then that can be very good. Because at the end of the day, as I speak now, you're going to realize that most parents think taking back a teenage mother to school is actually helping. I would love a policy to be put in place whereby it is not just the help, it is a responsibility for a parent to take care of a child regardless of the flaws
of their child. Well, earlier you had mentioned that you're seeing some of the parents and families or relatives saying, let's take this child to school as a form of punishment or to take the responsibility away from us. Is that what you mean?
Yes, because I've experienced that in the little time I've dealt with the teenage mothers. You find a parent bring a teenage mother in a way of punishing. They dump them in school, leave them there, go home. At one point, That was, I think, in 2019 when we had just begun. I received a girl from Palisa, and the brother was living in Kampala. So upon getting to know about that, picked the sister from Palisa, dumped her in school. Did not buy soap, no sugar, no nothing. So just left the girl there. And actually, after a period of about 3 months, they began sharing with me. And then they would gossip about her. Do you know she doesn't have sugar? And she does washing, like she helps others. If she's washing, she'll wash for the whole dormitory just to have a piece of soap for her to bathe. So it took us time to engage with the brother. I actually told her the reasons as to why she conceived in school are going to push her conceive again. Because these people that are giving her a small piece of soap, half a kilo of sugar, are going to draw her into...
Or they're going to use her vulnerability.
Exactly.
Right.
And cause her become pregnant again. So upon sharing with him, he realized how important it was. And he became very positive.
And
actually, every time you would call him, he would respond and send something to the girl. Because as a school, of course, we are not in position to give all those services to these teenage mothers.
Where is this girl right now?
The girl finished her senior form.
Yeah.
And she is doing hairdressing. She's in a salon, managing perfectly.
Well, that's quite remarkable. And like I said, you're remarkable yourself with the things that you're doing. And still on the policies and the change maybe, because I think we should highlight that rates of school dropout and even performance in schools, Jinja district or the wider region, when you go to Busoga, it's one of, it performs poorly compared to other regions in the country for various reasons. Teenage pregnancy has been one of them, but the attitudes and the positive, the poverty, like you had mentioned earlier. So if there is something to be done at community level, with the district leaders, for example, what call to action, what do you want to see changed in there so that at least we can pull the region to be at a better level in comparison with the others?
Now, in the first place, people are not skilled. You're going to find very many mothers seated at home. Yes, they go to the gardens, but of course, you have to wait for months to harvest. And the ones that are doing the digging are not doing it commercially. They are planting food and nothing more to that. So people are not earning, but are spending. My call to the local leader, to the district leaders, to everyone concerned, is to make sure that people are skilled. If people can have hands-on a few things that bring in money, then the community can be transformed. But you're going to count 110 women and only one is doing something that is bringing in money. Not just the women, but even the men. People are hanging here and there. People are not earning. So at the end of the day, someone fails to take a child to school simply because they cannot afford a book. So I find it very funny. I find it very hard. We have government schools, primary and secondary, but you find a child seated home for 2 weeks or a month simply because they ask for a 10,000 for development or for books or for porridge. And then you start imagining if a parent can fail to have 10,000 in a term, and that can make a child sit home.
Yes, for 3 months.
For 3 months. So it is a funny story and indeed a sad one. So I would call upon the community. We don't have to wait for leaders. But as a responsible person, as a grown-up, find something. Get skilled in something. I always challenge the ladies. You can do what the boys are doing. You can do the bricks. You can do the building. You can do this and that. So most importantly, let's have everyone skilled. My call to everyone is get skilled. At least better something than being home and waiting for onlookers to come and give you something.
Something, indeed. I'll take you back. We had mentioned the lady from Palisa, whom you say has now gone into hairdressing. What are some of the other success stories that you're realizing from the work that you've done so far?
Okay, my biggest success is seeing a teenage mother who had dropped in senior 1 or senior 2, accomplishing senior 4. That means they have attained the basic level of education and so can enroll for any course, that's if they passed. So last year I had my first group sitting, and in the group that sat, I had 4 teenage mothers. So those ones finished their basic level. Echisache Lillian is planning to join nursing. Of course, we are looking at resources to push her.
Yeah.
The parents claim they don't have. And indeed, you'll see they do not have, because if at secondary, they had failed, how about at the institution level?
Yeah.
Lillian is in Salon. Lillian passed with the 2nd grade. She doesn't want to continue. She tells you openly, I don't want to go to A level. I am doing what I love. So she's in Salon and she's doing well. So my success, my pride is seeing someone that I picked on, someone who had lost hope, bettering themselves every other day.
Have you engaged, for example, other schools, because your school stops at only O level?
Yes.
Other schools in the community which can take in, so that there's a form of transition when these girls finish O level to join A level?
Like I told you, it is quite hard. Every person have got their own vision. There is a secondary school, government aided.
Yeah.
And so we are speaking with our head teacher. We are talking with him to see that we can have our girls enroll there for their A level. Because in the community, until we change the attitudes of the girl child, of the community, most of them think after senior 4, they have achieved it all. Actually, convincing them to get back in school is not something very easy. But yes, we are trying.
Is it because they don't have role models in the community?
That could be one of the reasons,
yeah.
But also, of course, I began doing this in a time when COVID came in. So most of them think they have grown, they have wasted so many years, they would be somewhere. So it becomes kind of hard, but I am positive. With the talking, with the counseling, with the guiding, we shall achieve.
Right. And you had also mentioned that you're working with religious leaders.
Yes.
You're going to churches.
Yes.
How is that going?
Yes, we do go to churches. We engage pastors. We engage reverends. One, to continue speaking against teenage pregnancy. If in your sermon you can challenge the men, if in your sermon you can challenge the girls, you can challenge the mothers, then that voice is enough.
Also, you're trying to influence the message and how they package the message.
Exactly. To put an end to teenage pregnancy.
Right.
And also to empower the teenage mothers. Of course, we are all in the know that very many churches throw them out as outcasts.
Because of the morality, the question of morality.
Exactly. You conceive and you convert in this church, they cast you away. You're so evil, you're so immoral. So we are doing the talking. Can we accommodate these girls? Can we speak to them? Of course it happened. Yes, it is very bad. But are we going to lament? Are we going to throw them in the evil forest?
And what reception are you seeing from the religious community? Are they still locked onto the morality bit, or also realizing the other bit that
50-50. Some buy the idea, especially the Anglican Church. The few reverends I've spoken to are very quick to adjust. The Pentecostals, it's another thing. It is, for them, they look at it as welcoming immorality. So of course it is going to take time, but we shall keep the talking. Yeah. Personally, I am a Christian, and I so much respect the Christian virtues. But who are we to judge? As in, are we too perfect? Are we too holy than the Holy Spirit? So regardless of it all, none of us is perfect.
Right.
And if we judge these young girls, we are sending them to the world into doing worse things.
And also looking at all the other stakeholders involved, the police, for example. Have you had engagements with them, and what are the conversations like, or how are they going?
We have, and that is another story. Because basically, like I told you, we are trying to put a limit to negotiations. This issue of parents negotiating, the family of the boy and the family of the girl negotiating between goats, give us 2 goats, we give you the girl. We are really looking at how to end that. And in many cases, of course, community-wise, some people look at it in a negative way. You're dragging their son to police. You're telling them, take care of the baby. Because in most cases, I use the strongest or the loudest voice possible when it comes to taking care of this girl and the baby. So in most cases, we engage with the police. I have a criminal case I am following up. I have a young girl, 16 years. She reported back to school after COVID, pregnant. Of course, we did the checking and she was positive. And the question was, how do we accommodate her in school with her pregnancy? And so we engaged the parent, her parents, we engaged the police, and the boy was got, a fellow student.
Yeah.
So the parents wanted to do the negotiations outside the law, and we spoke to the DPC. Everyone came in. The boy was held because that is now beyond the parents. And my biggest concern is not just having this boy jailed, because he's equally a student.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is the young one that we are expecting. And I'm grateful that the families spoke. The DPC came in, documents were written, and the girl is in school, and both parties are giving a hand. So that is my pride. I enjoy seeing things move. I enjoy seeing these girls helped out.
Right.
So in most cases, if we keep the files, of course, community-wise, if it is the boy's family, they look at you as someone giving them hard time. By the end of the day, I keep reminding them that we have a child. We have a child, and we must put our heads together to see how the child grows.
Do you also wish for cases where maybe the relationship was consensual and both of them are young to be referred to police, for example?
Yes, because the moment you let them go, these boys are fond of taking off. So if it is done at a table between parents, it is really hard to follow up and it is illegal. So the best thing is to go to police. Let everything be documented. And that is basically what we look at.
Right.
In most cases, ESLA helps us hire lawyers, like that case in Namayingo of this girl who is currently pregnant. We got a lawyer, we involve people, technical, because we can't be technical everywhere. And so they are doing the follow-up.
Right. And then you mentioned something about, I was under the impression that as you're taking in the teenage mothers, you take in both those who've already given birth and those who are currently pregnant.
No, I wouldn't have to have the ones that are currently pregnant, but that happened, and the girl was there.
Yeah.
So, of course, it would be rude of us to throw her out of school, especially given the government intervention, because government made it very clear, told schools to accommodate the girls that were pregnant, and so wouldn't throw them out. However, if someone is coming in the project, we wouldn't have to take in someone who is pregnant, because pregnant mothers have lots of issues to deal with, and it's really hard for this person to concentrate in the academic part of it.
We've seen, I mean, pregnant women, they still work.
Yes.
They go to office, they go to gardens, they drive and do all sorts of things. Isn't it the same, or how?
Now school is a little bit different from work. In school, you're not seated alone. You're in class, you're spitting, you're vomiting. You want a peace of mind. School has a timetable. You feel like sleeping. The teacher is telling you, hand in your book. So it becomes kind of hard. So with that, we advise this child to give birth, take care of the child, and enroll back to school. Of course, this issue of having pregnant mothers in school has just come in. It's a post-COVID issue.
Yeah.
But initially, it was unheard of. They would send you home, take care of yourself, come back to write final exams. That would be a little bit understandable. But given the era we are in, it is quite different from what has been going on.
Now, with of course, with COVID, students lost about 2 years of school.
Exactly.
Now, if you find someone who is pregnant and maybe they're advised to be away for 9 months and then the other 6 months for breastfeeding, isn't that too much time that is lost for this child to catch up with school?
Of course, depending on I was about to say the size of the pregnancy, but of course, depending on the period, the cycles. If someone is in the initial stages of pregnancy, that person can be in school. But then there is a point whereby someone needs a break and you cannot force them to be in school. Of course, as a teacher, most of the times I do the talking. Even early mothers, someone was just given birth, I don't encourage them to be in school. There is nothing like losing time. Healthy first. Then these other things can come in. That is why I even go an extra mile to challenge them to stay home, take care of their babies until they are 6, and then get back to school. We have seen people of 30 years, 40 years, 50 years getting back in school. So there is nothing like, I've lost a lot of time, in my opinion. There is nothing like, I've lost a lot of time and blah, 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 blah. It is a matter of taking care of yourself. As long as you're in good shape, as long as you are normal, as long as you are healthy, you can always get back to school.
Have you had cases where maybe a student might want to continue studying even when they're pregnant?
Yes.
And what do you do?
I've not seen one in the project, but I've had them. In my opinion, I would advise them. Very few schools, of course, can accommodate them. But if they can get back to school, then why not? If at all they think they can handle. Because I'm looking at the healthy part of it. I'm looking at being able to manage, as in the ability to manage is another question. But if at all a student thinks they can, yes, they can continue in school.
Right, and that marks the end of our show. We've come to the end of the show. Our time is fast spent. I'd like to thank the remarkable Mebron Mutekanga for traveling all the way from Jinja just to be here with us. We had hoped to have someone else who didn't make it, unfortunately, but she was sharing with us her story, the passion that she had. From her own words, she was a very stubborn student who was almost given up on by her own parents and the community, but one teacher transformed her life, and from that, she picked up the passion to become a teacher herself, not just a teacher, but starting up a school and taking in students. And now this school project has turned into a safe haven for teenage mothers in her community in Njeru. That's her way of bridging the gender divide. She's also counseling students, and we hope that her story can also inspire you to do something in the community that you come from. Well, that's been it for today for CTV, Month of the Woman, with me, Amelia Martha Nachtimbo. More conversations are lined up for you, and of course, more programming continues today. Goodbye.